Hello, welcome to Ms. Peepers Reading Corner. I'm Katrina, aka Ms. Peepers. Let's talk about power outages. Today we're doing the Reading in the Dark book tag, which was created by Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading, who also tagged me, so thank you, Kelly. These prompts are all inspired by a power outage that Kelly experienced and made her start thinking about reading in the dark. So I'm excited to jump into these prompts. Question number 1, did you ever read under the covers with a flashlight as a kid? If so, do you have any memorable books or experiences? That is a really good question. I don't remember specifically doing that, but I must have. I've always been a reader, and I'd be shocked if I never read under the covers with a flashlight. I must have. I don't have any specific memories of it though, but I did read a lot as a kid. I had the little golden books, I had the Berenstain Bears, Roald Dahl was big in our house. And then as we got a little bit older, the Babysitter's Club was a series that I read a lot of. Judy Blume was a big presence in our home as well. I'm sure I read something under the covers with a flashlight. I'm sure I did. Prompt number 2. When you wake up in the middle of the night as an adult, do you read then? Any memorable books or experiences? Mrs. Pickles is going to help me answer this one. I don't really wake up in the middle of the night that much. Once I get to sleep, I'm a pretty sound sleeper, but I tend to have trouble getting to sleep. So I will more likely read late into the night or early into the morning, and then go to sleep. And I do that a lot. So as far as memorable books, last year I read Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, and I made a video about it, which I will link, but I definitely read that really, really into the small hours. And I would have finished it, except that I was just too bone tired. But I read that book almost entirely in one day. It was just so gripping and I just could not stop. I couldn't put it down. So until my brain just shut down and was like, all right, we're going to sleep now. Don't care what you think, we're going to sleep. And then I finished it the next day. I had like maybe 2 or 3 chapters left. So so that's more like my experience, and less the waking up in the middle of the night, fortunately. Question 3, the power outage. What have your reading experiences been when the lights won't turn on, the TV is dead, the computer is out? Do you read? Share with us any memorable books and or memorable experiences. There's something about a power outage that reminds us just how hooked we are on the technology around us. Not just devices with screens, but also just having electricity, electric lights, HVAC. It's kind of humbling in a way. We are fortunate where we live. I'm gonna knock on wood here that we don't have huge power outages terribly often. We live near a nursing home and also a fire station. So when our power goes out, we're pretty early in the recovery, which is definitely a privilege. But when the power does go out in that way, and it does, I do read in those times during the day, but once it gets dark outside, a flashlight or a candle, like it just doesn't cut it for me, for a long period anyway. So I definitely get antsy in the evening. So I'm like, there's nothing to do because I can't see well enough to do the things that I want to do. And although I love reading, I break up the reading time. I don't just sit and read for 8 hours straight. Very few people do. I'm sure there are people who do that, but I'm not one of them. And so it really does remind you just how used to grabbing for a computer or a TV or a phone you are. Question 4, reading ignorance. Did you ever read a book because you realized you were completely in the dark about a particular subject or genre? What was the book and experience like? I had to think about this because often when I pick up books, I know something about the topic and want to learn more, but I did go through my shelves and I came up with this one, The Afro-Minimalist's Guide to Living with Less by Christine Platt. This book actually, I don't even remember how I came across this book. I really don't remember how I came across this book. I probably saw a reference to it somewhere, but I don't I'm not a minimalist, clearly. That's pretty obvious, I think. But I do like the idea of being intentional about what items I do have and what I bring into the home. I'm not always good at it, but we're all a work in progress. And then this book adds the Black experience on top of the concept of minimalism, which I found really interesting. I knew nothing about that, and so Christine Platt talks about how the experience of Black people, particularly in the United States, which is where she lives, of coming from slavery and having to rebuild their lives in the United States after slavery was abolished, possessions are really important to people in her community, which makes logical sense. It's just something I'd never thought about. And so she talks about how being someone who does not have a ton of stuff everywhere is unusual for her and her cultural background. And she wanted that, but she also didn't want the sort of Western white minimalism. So when we think of minimalism, a lot of times we think about white furniture, clean lines, empty surfaces, sort of more of a Nordic style. And that is not her style. And she says in this book, she talks about how she loves color and she loves art, and she loves having certain items around. And so she takes that concept of having items that you love and surrounding yourself with things that you love without surrounding yourself with so much extra stuff that you don't actually need. So, it's a really interesting digging. It was really interesting digging into just the cultural aspects of it for her and other Black people, but also thinking about how I think of my possessions. It helped me think about how to reduce the amount of miscellaneous crap I have, for want of a better term, without depersonalizing my space. And that's something that Christine Platt talks about a lot. And so I really recommend this book. I read it quite a few years ago, but yeah, I saw this on my shelf and I was like, oh yeah, that one. I haven't thought about that in a while. And so this is a good one, and I definitely recommend it. Prompt number 5, reading blindly. Do you ever read a novel without knowing anything about it? That is, you haven't read the back of the book or any reviews, you just jump in. Name a book or share your experience. So typically, I will not acquire a book without knowing something about it. Now, I don't often go like in depth on everything that I'm about to read, because I do like to go in, experience the book for the first time without having a lot of other people's experiences influencing mine. That's not always possible. Obviously, there are some very popular books, or books that have just been around a long time, like classics. It's very difficult to come in with not a lot of knowledge. That said, though, there are so many books out in the world, and there are too many books for everyone to talk about. I have a tendency to like go into a used bookstore and I will read the back of the book. I'll pick up books that seem intriguing and then I'll put them on my shelf to read later. And I fully intend to read every single book that I acquire, that I bring into my library. I will get to them all one day. Probably, maybe, I don't know. I think I did the math, I think at the beginning of the year, and determined that if I keep my reading pace pretty consistent with what I've done in the past couple of years, and never acquire another book in my collection and just read what I have already, it would take me about 4 or 5 years to read everything. So having a 5-year backlog doesn't, when you think of it in those terms, a 5-year backlog doesn't sound that bad, honestly. But anyway, so I'll pick up books sort of on a whim, and then I'll put them on my shelves, and then I will forget what they are about. So that to me is sort of like gets at what this question is doing, where I'll look at something and be like, oh, that's been up there for a while. Let me pick that up. What is that? I don't remember what that book is. Let me read it. And then I'm surprised, pleasantly or unpleasantly, it varies. but I typically know something. The only time I might not know something is if someone gifts me a book that they think I will enjoy. Then I'm like, oh, I don't know what this book is about, but I still will read the back when it comes into my collection. So, yeah, I don't think I've ever come in with zero knowledge I can't not read the back of the book. Do people really do that? Not read the back of the book? I can't. I have to know something. Prompt number 6, other dark places. Camping, cars, basements, the movies. What are any other dark places you have read in, maybe unexpectedly? Share any books or memorable reading experiences. That's an interesting question. I don't read in the car because I get motion sickness and I get distracted. I don't go camping because, outdoors. No, we don't need that in our lives. I'm trying to think of other dark places that I read. I don't really frequently. I will sometimes read with my booklight if Mr. Peepers is ready to turn the light off, but I'm still reading. So that happens. I think that's probably common amongst couples, that one of them has a little booklight or maybe has their e-reader up. But that's really it. Those are really the only other places, other dark places. That's the only dark place that I really read with any regularity. Prompt number 7, Epiphany, the lights are on. Which book or books have given you a proverbial light bulb over your head? Something that really illuminated an idea to you. Share the book and reading experience. I mean, for that, I'm gonna have to go with Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. One interesting thing about this book is it connects so many dots between tuberculosis and so many big portions of our society and small ones. I mean, the title says it all. Everything is tuberculosis. I did a whole video on this, so I'll link to that. But as far as like the light bulb, for me, it was there's so many things that that John Green discusses in this book. Everything from like beauty standards to our medical systems to art and fashion and all of these things. And it just, so many things that I've started to notice things as well. Like, oh, I wonder if this is connected to tuberculosis. I see things like, for example, in a series of unfortunate events, Mr. Poe is always coughing. I'm like, oh, he must have consumption. And someone pointed out to me that Edgar Allan Poe has had consumption. And so that was probably a deliberate reference on the part of the author. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. So anyway, I love that kind of thing and like that dot connecting with your everyday life. So yeah, Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. I love this book, and I will probably continue to talk about it because it's one that just really connected a lot of dots and connects to a lot of things. And that's the end of our prompts. The last one is to tag people, so I will definitely do that in the description below. But if I don't tag you and you want to do this tag, please consider this your sign, your tag. I will happily consider you tagged. If you don't have a channel, I'd love to hear your answers to any or all of these in the comments below. Please share. Let me know if you've read either of these books and what you thought about them. And of course, as always, please keep reading, and I will see you in the next one.